Hey now, welcome to the Dirty Side of the Track, America's leading Formula One podcast. I'm Brian, that's Rob. We are super excited about this week's episode. And Rob, tell us why.
There are so many things to get excited about. We have got some livery launches to talk about because the season is getting close. We have an amazing guest. We have TikTok sensation Antonia that we interviewed this week, and she was amazing. And then after that, we've got some insane news about what's coming up next week. So really, you have to stay here all the way to the final riff on the guitar because it's going to be absolutely jam-packed.
Definitely don't miss the announcement at the end.
And definitely don't miss Antonia. It's all brilliant. What's not brilliant? Is it not brilliant? I'm going to argue myself here, Brian, and throw it over to you. We had Red Bull's car launch, livery launch,
and
random show in New York for no reason type thing, right?
And Haas.
And Haas. I just want to get to... Well, actually, there's a nice contrast, right, between the two. Haas turned up with a different livery. We all know they're going to be last year's cars and last year's models that we're going to see these things on. I think we're prepared for that. But Haas at least came to the show with a new colour scheme. Cool. Red Bull, well, they just came with exactly the same... Like exactly the same livery, like bar some sizing and slight movements of sponsors. Someone did one of those pictures, kind of spot the difference, and said, "It's impossible because there are no differences." It's so. Back in the day when I were a lad, they launches would be car launches because no one worried about this stealing ideas off each other. So you knew you might see, like a lot of people have put out there, well, look at the famous McLaren design, the red and white design. It didn't change for like a gazillion years because it was iconic. And it didn't. But what did change was you saw some new shapes. You saw some new pieces and parts that you hadn't seen the year before. You're like, oh, okay, what's that bit going to do? So as well as the livery, it was also the car. And if a car had an iconic livery, you didn't mind that didn't change because you saw some new pieces of car. Now that everyone is either too paranoid or whatever it is, and we push the car launches off until we see them on track in test and it's just livery... It's a bit rubbish, isn't it?
Are you finished?
Yeah.
Okay, it doesn't bother me at all. I mean, I think you accuse me of often overthinking things. As we prepare for episodes, as we talk about races, I always get the, boy, you're overthinking it. Well, Rob, turn that frown upside down, buddy, because you are overthinking it. It's a good-looking livery. Yes, it looks like last year's. Was last year's bad? No, it was good.
But I don't get the fanfare. I don't get the big kind of show. And here come all the streamers and the fireworks, and you go, oh, there's last year's car.
But you can't. If 9 of 10 teams have relatively new liveries, and I'm making up the number because we'll see what it turns out to be. But if 9 of 10 have relatively new liveries, and they all have fantastic launches, and then Red Bull's like, nah, we're just going to send out a fax, and here's a picture of it. They can't do that. You got to have one too. I mean, you can't say, you know what, it's really similar to last year. We don't need a launch. Here it is. Talk to you later.
I actually, though, I really was underwhelmed by the whole presentation of everything. It felt like it was kind of like one of your presentations that you thrown together at the last minute and kind of like the spelling mistakes and, it just didn't have that Red Bull polish that I was expecting because I thought at least if there was the same livery, we'd get like the big razzmatazz, but maybe kind of entertainment, PR and all that kind of stuff is victim of the cost cap and they just went, don't worry about it.
I think you've got your hopes up way too high. I don't know what you expect in these things. They pull back a picture of the car. The drivers walk around and answer a couple of softball questions and they call it a day. You expect some kind of like, you want them to turn the engine on and kind of do a donut on the stage?
No, I just don't want these at all.
Oh.
I'm like, don't bother. If you're just going to show us a picture of last year's car. And
so
like I say,
only
a lot
the
of them
people like Haas who take off the blue and ruin my cap. Thanks, Haas.
Exactly.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
Why not build the anticipation and actually just do it or maybe car reveal day the day before testing. So you truck off to testing 23rd or whatever it is this month. On the 22nd is car reveal day. There's now no chance of anybody stealing anything and 3D printing something for the next day. So it's not going to happen, right? So now we get to see all of it in all its glory. Here's the new car, bigger wing mirrors, bigger bits, whatever you changed, and the livery all in one go. This is a waste.
Look out your window right now and see if anyone's on your grass, because you should really go yell at them.
I'm grumpy over this. It's pointless. Get rid of it. Bored now.
Keep it, love it. It's great. Haas, so let's talk about Haas real fast. The delivery launches. I like the colors. The black and the white and the red, obviously removing the Russian blue and the Russian flag and the things that had kind of come through over the years that they couldn't actually show. I like it. I would have preferred the Haas on the side to be red. I thought it would have stood out more, but really no biggie to me. I liked it. I gave it a solid 7 or 8. I can't remember. I thought it was good.
I don't know, but I'm pretty sure we talked to Antonia about this. So why don't you just steal the thunder of the entire interview that we've got coming up later?
Well, listen for more on that. But there was, after the Red Bull launch, there was some huge news. And it was that Ford is back in Formula One. And I was really excited and very confused for about a day as we kind of digested this news. So obviously we learned that Ford will be helping, providing, guiding, strategizing, helping build the engines for Red Bull and AlphaTauri. Okay, great. We obviously have Mercedes, who's still there, and they use their own engines. Ferrari's there, use their own engines. We saw this week as well that Audi has purchased 25%, and there's a progression of purchases planned with Sauber. So it'll in 2026, it will no longer be Alfa Romeo. It might even be sooner. It'll be Audi, but it'll be an Audi engine in 2026. So we know that. We have, as I said, Red Bull and AlphaTauri with Red Bull Ford powertrains. Alpine will obviously be the Renault Alpine engine. Where's that leave Honda? I'm like so confused. And then there are some like customer teams like McLaren, Aston Martin, Williams, and Haas who buy Mercedes or Ferrari engines. We don't know what they'll be on in 2026. But what about Honda? Like it's like
they made that bet.
They school dance.
No,
and
I think they decided to
partner.
leave. They decided to leave. When they decided to not pursue that with Red Bull anymore, and that fade and that kind of... They've been here, they've done this loads of times before. They dip in, they come in, they run an entire team back in the day, and then they kind of back out of it again. They just seem like they can't make their mind up whether they want to be in F1 or not. So now we're going to go through...
They're still listed as a potential 2026 supplier. They're accredited as such.
Yeah, and I guess that's probably just paperwork. They probably have that option on the table in case they want to come in, but... I think if they wanted to stay in, they would have just extended the agreement, or they would have done something like Ford are doing with Red Bull to say, we'll partner up with you, we'll help you design the engines, all this kind of stuff.
As I said, there are 4 customer teams, of Ferrari and Mercedes that are out there that, you never know. If Honda wanted to stay, maybe they look for one of them.
Maybe. I think you need to start making those decisions now, because with the changes that are going to come in 2026, you need to be starting to think about those changes now, not kind of edging your bets. I imagine those teams will make announcements real soon, and I don't see any of them carrying the Honda logo on them.
Oh, really?
I think we're hitting one of those eras where Honda are out, and then give it like 10 years, and they're back to having their own team again.
I agree. It's a very real chance. It's probably the most likely that they're out, but I wouldn't put it past someone like McLaren or somebody to grab a Honda engine.
Yeah, maybe. What else we got in the engine world? We've got...
We saw Mercedes on track this week.
We did, which really confused a whole bunch of people, which was like, oh my gosh, we're already seeing the car. No, you're not. You're seeing last year's weird tyre tests that for some reason Mercedes... I didn't see the story as to why Mercedes didn't get all of their tyre testing with those weird tyres last year. They must have been washing their hair or something that weekend, and they had to have detention and make up for it now. So they were out on pit lane Paul's favourite track, Paul Ricard, doing some tyre testing. So... again, kind of a bit of a... when you're in that lull where you're just desperate to see cars on track, but it was a bit of a nothing burger because it's last year's cars on those awful tyres.
Totally agree. We saw some F1 Academy news. We'll actually talk a little bit about the Academy in our conversation with Antonia, but the news that came out around that conversation was Lena Bueller signs up for the Academy, and W Series driver Bianca Bustamante is going to Prema in the Academy, which is... a sign that the W Series might not return in 23. I guess we'll see. But it's been... now we see W Series drivers moving over to Academy. So it'll be curious to kind of see what shakes out in the next month.
And I think... I can't remember now. Did we say it in the interview with Matt Bishop, or did we say it after we finished recording about how if W Series is dead... if what it's done while it did exist was to create the opportunity for an official-backed part of the family series in the Academy to exist and be a proper entryway into the other formula, then it probably did its job. Because it wasn't official, it was sat on the side, it was kind of this other thing that wasn't really part of the series. Now the F1 Academy is, so, maybe it needed to exist for a short time just to create this opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm going to let you take this next piece of news because...
Only because you don't want to try and pronounce the guy's name.
No, the line above it. the thing near and dear to your heart.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I'm looking at you. I'm looking at our notes here, and I could see your little bee dancing on the next line. I was like, Brian just so wants to avoid saying that guy's name. But okay, no, you're going to have it now because I'm going to take this one.
Well, this is for you. I mean, everybody who listens knows you have a very soft spot in your heart for this person.
Yeah, Mick Schumacher, love him. Yeah. I don't get this one though, and I didn't do enough digging to find out why it exists. But we know he's got signed up now as a Mercedes reserve driver, so he's kind of just sitting in there, waiting in the wings, waiting for Lewis to call it a day, and then we'll get George and Mick tearing it up for Merck in a year or two. But he's been added to the McLaren pool of reserve drivers, so there's
like a driver sharing kind of situation.
Yeah, a little kind of. I guess it's like an Airbnb, but for drivers. And you sign up to it, and they'll say, "Yeah, you can use Mick." So, I guess that raises his chances of being in a car this year, for whatever reason. So, no, that's good news. Good old Mick.
Yeah, I knew you were excited when you saw that. And sadly, we lost Jean-Paul Jabouillet, the first winner for Renault at the French GP in '79, passed away this week, aged 80. So, our thoughts obviously to his family. And then a piece that I found that I wanted to hit because I've been big on this kind of conversation about Mohammed Ben Sulayem. Everyone thinks he's got to go, says one F1 team boss in quotes. That is definitely the general view in quotes. Anonymous team boss gave a quote of. So this is what I said last week. I mean, you can't, it's one thing to mess with people's money. And they're going to put you on suspension at this point. When you say the valuation of F1 is too high, Liberty Media and their attorneys and everybody got involved and said, shut the heck up because we're building an empire over here. And then he comes out on an old website it's found and he says he doesn't like when women try to act smarter than men because they're not. Bye-bye. I mean, that you can't be that obtuse.
No, I agree. But what I do want to know is, so this quote came from Planet F1, and it's this anonymous team boss says, did you phone up Planet F1 and pretend to be an anonymous team boss just so that you could try and take the moral high ground here that you broke it first?
Yes, I was Spice Boy. I said it's me, Spice Boy on the phone, anonymous call. No, I didn't. And then a piece of news that I was in love with last week, I put it out on the Twitter. Max had said... or the rumor was Max was putting his sim rig or a sim rig in his private jet. But he came out this week, and Luke Smith had the story on Autosport. Max Verstappen has cleared up the story. He's installing a sim rig on his jet. It's going in his new motorhome that'll use to travel to races around Europe. I like the idea of it on the jet. I was so excited. As well. I wanted Max and that cool logo he has on the side of his jet flying all over the world doing sim races from his plane. Now, I don't know if the Wi-Fi is good enough to support something like that. I hadn't thought of that when I first saw the story, and this makes a lot more sense when you're parked up and you have good internet. But man, I really was hoping he was at 30,000 feet flying around doing F1 races in his jet.
Yeah, I kind of had full vision of some sort of Tony Stark private jet with all this technology in it, with Max there sim racing, and then I don't know, jumping out and just skydiving down to the racetrack. Just parachuting down and landing in his seat in his car and going, I'm good, let's go.
So is Max the new Bond? Is that what we're saying?
No, more Tony Stark, Iron Man. I can't give Max James Bond credentials.
I don't know. He looks good in the tux. You know what? As much as I rip on Max, because I think he could be better, and he's one of the best drivers of his generation, by far, clearly. If you showed me a picture of Max sim racing in his jet and then jumping out with a parachute on, I mean, I'd get a MV33 tattoo on my... Anyway, so...
oh, wait, is this official? So if they arrange for Max to skydive out of his private jet after sim racing, you will get his logo tattooed on your backside?
Somewhere, I didn't say where, but I would. The 33, though. I mean, I'm also a traditionalist. I know you can get the 1 when you're the champ, and you should, but his number's 33. So, saw a note from a great follow, if you guys don't follow, Vincenzo Landino, about the F1 business side of things, that there's a movie that I did not know was being made. So I don't know a ton about this. Your boy Sap here has got some research for next week's episode. But Michael Mann, who makes amazing movies, just amazing movies, is doing a movie called Ferrari. And Adam Driver is Enzo Ferrari in this movie. I didn't know this was happening. And
me neither.
I saw this note. I'm like, what? So I am super excited. It's going to follow the life of Enzo Ferrari and talk about both how he kind of had some of the team building and getting family stuff out of the way as he kind of tried to get ready for different races to kind of launch the Ferrari brand. I am so excited for this. That's all I have.
I was waiting for another insight. Then you kind of took a breath and like, no, I'm done. That's it. End of.
Are we going to get together for this? Is this a Dirty Side gets together to watch this in IMAX type situation?
Oh yeah, watch along Ferrari. Yeah, maybe. Who knows? What I do know is that somebody being so excited about a Ferrari film coming has been a little bit slack on the video research front.
I have. Yeah, my apologies. You guys know I love the social media aspects and the videos from the teams and the team radio. This week was kind of chaotic. So I have 2 notes on videos, but it'll be back and better than ever next week.
Well, and one of the reasons you were busy is because you have single-handedly created the new number 1, maybe, trending hashtag, February for F1 fantasticness.
You were trying to throw a Ferrari in there.
I was looking at the Ferrari thing. Let's go again. I'll cut that bit out. No, February F1 fantasticness. In no way, stealing March Madness thunder. But you came up with the idea. We got together. We launched it last week. And why don't you tell everyone about the 2 that we've had go through so far, the votes?
Yeah, definitely. So, correct. It is not at all inspired by March Madness. Just because it's a bracket and has a month name and gets a winner at the end, has nothing to do with March Madness whatsoever, that we ripped off completely. And so we have 16 of the top F1 drivers of all time. And Rob and I debated this a bunch, and what we ended up coming up with was every multiple World Drivers' Champion is included except Brabham and Graham Hill for we've spent a lot of time on this, and the other 14 or 15 that we added, we just couldn't bump them for Brabham or Graham Hill. But we did include Sir Sterling Moss, just based on our discretion, to see the quote, best driver to ever win the World Drivers' Championship. So those were our 16. We've put the bracket out. We've gotten through 2 rounds. Alain Prost over Mika Hakkinen, 67.2% of the vote. Juan Manuel Fangio over Sir Sterling Moss, 81.3% of the vote. So Fangio with a butt kicking for Moss. A lot of good debate on the posts on Twitter. I appreciate that, from people saying, I think Moss is better. I think Fangio, talking about why, pictures. Just to note, we have Vale's tales on both Fangio and Moss, so feel free to find the link on our website, dirtysideofthetrack.com, special episodes. We have them all listed there by platform, so feel free to find your preferred platform and check those out. But this will continue through the month of February. February F1 Fantasticness. We'll keep going, and we're going to crown the best F1 driver of all time. So please vote, and when you see them launch every about day and a half, 2 days, feel free to share. So we can get as many votes as possible. And as I said, yes, videos will be back next week. But I do know just on Friday of this week, Checo was on Jimmy Fallon. Danny Rick was on Stephen Colbert. I will watch those and make sure to include a recap if they're worthy or not for next week's episode.
Yeah, so no, thanks for setting all the. You really got your Photoshop skills out and got that bracket set up. So I appreciate the effort you put into that, Brian. I just want to echo, it's been great. Actually, we've put polls out before and not really had much engagement. And the 2 that have gone out so far have been well voted on. Well, for our polls, but it would be great to see that number keep to increase, and you guys generate that kind of debate. Like Brian says, the comments on them have been fantastic. So please make sure you look out for them. Please make sure you vote. Please make sure you retweet and share it so that we can try and get even more votes on the rest of the bracket to come. Speaking of things to come, now we're going to switch over to the interview that we recorded last week with Antonia Rankin. So I was going to introduce who she is, but I think I do introduce who she is at the beginning of the interview. So maybe I should just shut up and just go straight over to the interview. What do you reckon, Brian?
Let's do it.
Okay, it's our great pleasure to welcome to the Dirty Side of the Track this week, Antonia Rankin of TikTok fame, which, according to my daughter, is a really big thing. No, I'm joking. So welcome to the Dirty Side, Antonia.
Hi, thank you for having me.
No worries. Thank you for coming on. I was kind of referencing your TikTok account, and I will say it was actually through my daughter that I actually found you. So she's a big fan, so she's going to be completely obsessed by the fact that I'm talking to you. But you've got huge following on TikTok. Your number 1 view for anybody that needs to go and look at Antonia Rankin on F1 Antonia on TikTok. 1.9 million views for the moment of your sand building F1 car.
It is an amazing TikTok. I mean, it is amazing. How long did it take you to do that?
Thank you. It was like a full day of pretty dedicated digging and things. Yeah, I had to take a few breaks for food.
Oh man! I mean, one of the things we kind of like to drill down to when we get anybody on is kind of origin stories. So, When did you get into F1? How did you get into F1 as well?
I wish I could say I remember. All I know is that there's pictures of me at various stages of childhood wearing various F1 merch. So I'd like to, it's like nepotism, but my dad forced me into it. So I don't know what the word for that is, but I don't think I had much choice but to be an F1 fan, really. So yeah, no, I think there's a picture of me at about 4 years old in a little, sofa den wearing a Michael Schumacher Ferrari top. And I guess it all began from there.
Well, job well done.
Yeah.
Raising a kid who loves F1. I have
my
failed.
dad's very proud of himself.
He
Yes.
should be. He should be. I have a question for you as a content creator and you do a lot of things as well as on Missed Apex and other places, but you create so much content. Do you ever feel obligated or tired or fatigued and it's like, oh, I'm gonna take a day off, and you wrestle with doing it or not? I'm just curious because you are so prolific and excellent at it. Is that something you wrestle with, or is that not a problem?
I think it's a mix. When it's something like F1, which I just live and breathe it, and it's my absolute passion and I love it to pieces, I could talk about it all day. Of course, some days are better than others. Sometimes I do just want to curl up in bed and not show my face to however many thousand people, but no, I don't see it as an obligation at all, and I don't see it as a job or a chore, and it's not something that I get sick of. I feel like there's always something to unpack or, gossip about or explain, because there's so much about F1. I just feel like I never run out of ideas. Not touch wood. I hope I don't run out anytime soon.
and I just want to pick up on the explanation ones that you do, right? So we've got a blog that we do on the website, and this week I interviewed ChatGPT to see what it would come up with, and I kind of did, explain aerodynamics for children, and it did a fairly decent job for that. Now, your explanation videos, I don't know whether this is by design, whether you set out that you wanted to do this, or whether it's just natural the way that you explain things, but you are able to get across quite complex ideas in very small windows of time that don't sound like you're dumbing it down, but at the same time, you are breaking it down into simple explanations. I mean, I'm not quite sure how you do it. So was that the way that when you decided you were going to do the TikTok and you were going to do, say, F1 for beginners or whatever it was going to be, is that what you set out to do? Or is that just natural Antonia, how she explains things?
Oh gosh, I think being a blonde, I have to dumb things down for myself a lot of the time. So when I originally started my TikTok, it was just me mucking about, and then I realized, I can share my knowledge, and that's really cool. So I kind of explain things the way that I understand them, which, I'm not always 100% correct. So I do have a few people jumping in sometimes and being like, Antonia, that's not right. And again, I blame it on the blonde. But I really like to think that, F1, I think one of the things that people find inaccessible about it is the fact that it's on surface level, just a bunch of cars go around in circles. And if you don't know the drivers, if you don't understand the engineering side of things, it must be so kind of just like a wall of completely unintelligible, I don't know. So yeah, no, I try to break things down as best I can, and I really enjoy doing it. But yeah, I think most of the time when I'm just sat in front of my camera, first of all, long videos don't do well because people my age have a time span of about 5 seconds. But also I have a time span of about 5 seconds. So it's really good just to be able to do something coherently in a short amount of time, concisely.
And how much of it ends up on the cutting room floor? Because there are the kind of those edits where you're obviously kind of sticking it together. So let's say you've done 45 seconds on explaining aerodynamics. How long is that video really before you cut it down to 45 seconds?
Well, the thing is with TikTok, I don't like to have videos more than a minute on explanation videos because, like I said, people's time attention spans just are not long enough. And, you don't just want to sit and watch someone talk at you for 5 odd minutes. So what I normally do is I speak freely just with natural cuts. I normally plan out what I'm going to say first. And then I hit a point where I've recorded 45 seconds and I have 15 seconds left to finish off explaining a ridiculously complicated thing. So I kind of have to then really start being careful about what I say. But no, I've started kind of changing up the way I do things where I pre-record and then cut it down, but then that takes ages. So no, normally I just record it in app and hope and pray that I've kind of simplified it enough that I can fit it all in.
Have you found, kind of shifting gears a little from the creation to the reception, have you found the people who like your videos and who participate on the comments on your TikToks, are you bringing more people into the sport? I would assume you would be. I mean, you're young and your videos are funny, and it's great to have people kind of opening the aperture of the lens of fans. So do you see that happening for some of your followers?
Yeah, there's definitely a bit of that. I have a lot of people in my comments saying, "Oh, I don't know a lot about F1." People will come to my page and ask me questions about it as new fans trying to understand more. I think I like to think that I've got like a little bit of a niche going on, being a young girl in F1 who knows things. If that's how I were to describe myself in a nutshell. But yeah, no, I think a lot of the people I have on my page are mainly just people who A, love the sport, and B, kind of want to learn a little bit more about it. So I do have quite a lot of people who, maybe have got into the sport recently through Drive to Survive and then just kind of want to learn a bit more.
That's amazing. One thing, Rob, sorry. So we also try to bring in, we have a good mix of fans of F1 from a long time ago, some Americans who have done the secret handshake before it was popular here, and we'd run into other people, oh, you like F1? And then, a good mix of folks from around the globe, and also a lot of new fans. And the Drive to Survive has brought in so many people, and I love that. Mm-hmm. I love people who, even if they watched season 4 just recently and what got in, great. The more to the merrier is the way I look at it. So I just say keep on rocking the way you bring people in. That's great, Antonia. I really appreciate opening for all of us more fans of F1.
No, I mean, honestly, I really don't like the amount of stick Drive to Survive gets, because for starters, I wouldn't have my platform without it, because no one my age would care at all about F1. But no, I love that the fan base is expanding, and I think it's so fantastic that more American fans are getting into the sport and more young fans are getting into the sport, because until Drive to Survive, viewing figures were going down in F1, and it was actually becoming more and more of a niche. So yeah, no, I'm really hoping it doesn't die out anytime soon.
Agreed.
So I want to explore one other angle of this, which Brian's usually the one that asks really long-winded questions, and I'm sitting there waiting for him to come to an end, but it's probably going to be my turn on this one because this is me. Just the background for context here. So I coach my daughter's soccer, Brian, team. And I'm really, really happy that she's growing up in an era where she's got a lot of role models. So whether it's the Lionesses back home, whether it's the USA women's team over here, as much as me being the coach can give them the players that I grew up watching and my current favorite players, they've also got good female role models. They can say, I want to be, whether it's the US, I want to be Rapina or whoever, Alex Morgan, whoever it is, they've got strong female role models. Now, you are being very brave going into an area. You've already said it yourself that you're a young female. So 2 aspects of this. How much gatekeeping do you get from people that are probably both male and maybe mine and Brian's age that tell you shouldn't be here? But secondly, where do you think F1 is at the moment in terms, if I was comparing it to, say, soccer, which feels like it's come on loads in the last 10 years, that the women's game is really strong now. Where do you see kind of where F1's managed to shift the dial on kind of female participation?
Gosh, it's really difficult to say. No, I think in my personal experience, I've received so many negative comments pertaining to my gender, pertaining to the fact that I'm a young woman, and of course I do fit the stereotype of the Drive to Survive fan, which many older fans are very hostile towards, which is, again, something that I completely don't understand, because even if I were a Drive to Survive fan, what blimming difference does it make?
Right.
I digress. I think there's still a very long way to go. And I think that partially lies in just social attitudes generally towards women in sports, infiltrating the little guys club, especially that F1 used to be, the gentleman racing. That's kind of, that era is coming to an end now, where F1's becoming more about the athletes and the cars, as opposed to kind of just like a bunch of guys driving around on a Sunday. But no, I think the sport has come a long way, and I think it still has a very long way to go. I mean, we saw the rise and the fall of W Series, which was just, as a female fan, to see an organization like the FIA kind of allow that to happen is so frustrating, especially given that it was one of the only platforms that actually gives women a bit of a foot up in the sport, and the platform that really they do very much need in order to have any visibility to get onto these grids. But there's only so much we can do from inside the sport, when in reality there are a lot of fans who are still so closed off to the idea of girls being involved in any capacity. I mean, even now, with being as fortunate as I am to have the platform that I have, I still have so many comments, and they're always petty, and they always come from a place of, maybe bigotry slightly, just not being willing to accept the change that's inevitable. But there are so many people who just don't frankly think that girls have a place in motorsports, in cars at all, and it's frustrating. But I'm hoping, and I really do think this is the way we're going, over time it will just become that these views will slowly become more and more and more of a minority.
I agree, and I think that there's more and more female journalists getting in and around. When we look at race weekend on the TV now, there's more and more kind of female representation there. And like I say, it feels like it's maybe following the wave that, say, soccer is following, where my daughter even remarked to me when we watched the World Cup at the end of last year that on TV over here, at least anyway, they always had a female commentator. It was just part of it. And she actually turned to me and she said, I really like the fact that we've got a woman commentating on this. So I was like, yeah, so do I. And I'm glad you like it as well. Now, I think the ultimate thing, and I don't even think we could pin a time frame on this, is, will we see a female driver in F1? I think, what's the new one that they've launched, the FIA? Is it the F1 Academy?
Yep, the Academy.
That's kind of, I'm not quite sure if that's the W Series replacement or not. Be interesting to see, because it's one of the sports that, unlike, say, something like, I don't know, the Olympics 100 meters final, biology is always going to dictate that the guy's going to have the world record time and the female will be just behind. But F1, I don't really see. I think you mentioned in one of your TikToks, power steering maybe, but I don't really see that there's a big barrier that would stop a female beating a male driver.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, F1 itself does have power steering. So in F1, actually, that in itself wouldn't be a barrier. It's more just the fact of how physical the sport is. And, certain body types can withstand, the lateral G-force, the braking force, where you need to exert 80 kilograms on the brake very quickly for a very long amount of time, which for a woman might be almost double her body weight. It's so difficult. And I think, aside from the stigma and aside from any social attitudes that might belie, all of these negative comments towards the girls in the sport, especially W Series, I definitely think there's no excuse going forwards why these series can't become more inclusive, especially given that, in the Formula Series, some of the cars don't have power steering, whereas Formula One does. So I don't see why it's necessarily not just put in, because it's little things like that are what make it inaccessible to women, because unfortunately, as you say, biologically, there are some things that women just simply are not strong enough for compared to their male counterparts. Yeah.
Whew. Well, I think we've probably gone as deep as we like to go on the dirty side here. We're going to have to get back to the fun now. But I really was just interested to kind of hear your view on that. And actually, just from, although no one else on the podcast is going to be able to see your face, the fact that you seem to brush these comments off, the negative comments, you seem to be taking it all in your stride. So I would say keep on doing that, because we were speaking to Matt Bishop the other week who left Twitter because of all the homophobic comments he was getting all the time. And it's a real shame when that happens. I totally understand why he did. Thankfully, he came back today, which is fantastic.
As of recording today, he's back.
Yeah. So, it's easier said than done, but please don't let the haters get you down. But let's switch gears. 2023 season is coming upon us. First things first, this week we saw the Haas livery revealed. 2 questions for you on this. Do you like it? And should they be allowed to do livery launches, or should it be a proper car launch?
Oh, that's so difficult. On your first point, I'm not that bothered about livery. I know that sounds so stupid. I'm so much more interested in the car itself and how it performs, the engineering of it, what makes it different, any minute aerodynamic feature that it might have that sets it apart from the field, which is why livery reveals, as they used to be car reveals, have just become gradually less and less interesting, because teams are almost a bit afraid, especially in the modern era where you can, 3D print something just based on a 2D image. If they can't give too much away, the teams, because of course their rivals can just go, oh, I like those side pods, let me just whack those on my car. They have to be so careful. And what I found really interesting is, in testing, and a few years ago, we've had various liveries that are designed to kind of disguise how the car looks.
The camo livery.
Yeah, it's become a bit sneaky, hasn't it? Yeah, no. I think it's a bit of fun, isn't it? It's really cool to know what the cars are going to look like. It's very much just a surface level element of the sport. It's not particularly interesting. It's important for sponsors, I suppose, but no, I'm not that bothered, if I'm quite honest, about any of the liveries. Obviously, if one of the iconic teams changed their livery, I'd be a bit I'd be a bit more into it, maybe.
Well, there was a rumor flying around that McLaren are going to drop the orange, but I think that's a complete internet made-up story. But we'll see. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with you. I think last year there was a bit more eagerness to see the cars because it was the new regs. It was like, what are these 2022 cars going to look like? And this year, I'm kind of like, I'm happy to see them. I think the Haas one looks pretty nice, but yeah, I want to see them. Where are we now? We're February the 1st as we record today. So we're end of the month when we actually see cars on track is what I'm a lot more excited for. But I do like to see a nice looking car revealed as well. I can't lie.
I was a little, I knew the livery would change, but so over Christmas break, I got a note on Twitter and it said, hey, Haas is having a sale on their hats. If you buy anything in the Haas store, you get a free cap. I said, all right, sign me up. So I bought the cheapest thing I could find. And I got a beanie and then a hat for free. The shipping was more expensive than the entire deal, but that's okay. And then it arrived, and it's the Haas blue. And I was excited. I wore it a couple times, and now there's no blue on the car. And I bought something really stupid. And I had 2 good wears of it, and it makes no more sense, but I will wear it proudly. It's just when they revealed the car, I sat here on my computer like, oh, no. But I did like it. Rob liked it more than me, but it was interesting. I'd like to see the Haas in red on the side personally, and I think when they put medium tires on, it's going to be interesting because the yellow is going to really stick out considering the whole car is black, red, and white. But anyway, Antonia, for you, when you look at 2023, is there a team, a driver? Is there something that really excites you? Like after the first couple races, you say, I want to see somebody or a team to how they're performing.
I am immensely excited to see how some of the new driver pairings are going to get on, and that might take a few races into the season, but I just cannot wait to see the dynamics between, you know, Piastri and Lando, see how that gets on. I mean, Piastri, what a fantastic driver. Let's see if that translates into Formula One. Nick de Vries, I can't wait to see how he performs, you know, just to step into a car the way he did last year, perform as well as he did. If he can do that this season in his rookie F1 season, my gosh, that would just blow everyone's socks off, won't it? I think there's so much to be excited for. It's just going to be so good. I mean, Alonso at Aston Martin, I think there's been a really good amount of shaking up in the grid to make the oncoming season so exciting. And I just can't wait to see how these new driver pairings and how these new drivers kind of accommodate themselves into the sport.
Do you think Ferrari...
Oh boy, Rob's a big Ferrari fan.
Yeah, I know, I'm a big Ferrari
whatever
fan.
Comes
Okay,
next, just discount it a little bit.
No, it's not discounted. It's a genuine question. Is that most teams that are successful when they go for a driver's title will nominate a number one driver really, really early on in the season. I think for me, that's where Ferrari kind of failed a little bit last year because they kind of, although the car was fantastic and they took off a fantastic rate of knots, then they seemed to get confused in their strategy as to which driver they were either, well, we're not trying to favour one, but we are favouring them both. No, it's all a disaster. Let's go to plan F. Do you think they need to prioritise a driver, and should it be Charles?
That sounds like a leading question. Well, I think Ferrari were unfortunate enough to experience more than just teammate-related strategic blunders last season, but putting that aside, historically, yes, it has been a successful strategy to choose a primary driver and have the other drivers support them in pushing for wins, you know, defending off the pack whilst the other launches off ahead. I mean, that's part of the reason that Lewis Hamilton has so many titles, because Valtteri Bottas did such a fantastic job of assuming that role. And why I think we could see some tension in the Red Bull garage going into the next couple of seasons if Sergio Perez doesn't want to be treated as the second driver anymore. As for Ferrari, I think there's going to be a lot of change in the dynamic in the upcoming season. I think there's going to be a lot to examine there. I think Charles Leclerc is one of the best drivers of his generation. I really think if he can just iron out some of his mistakes, he could be just something truly, truly special. However, with that being said, Carlos Sainz is also a phenomenal driver. He is a reliable driver. He's consistently in the points. He's also absolutely fantastic. And it's not as simple as choosing a 1 and 2 between those two drivers as it is between, you know, Hamilton and Bottas, because neither one appears to be directly above the other. And I think, to be honest, Ferrari might have been hedging their bets a little bit last season, thinking, oh, well, we'll just see which one emerges. And then at the summer break, we'll just pick who's ever doing better to favour. But yeah, I do think generally speaking, it's a tried and tested strategy to pick one driver and move forward with that. However, then the issue lies in if Sainz is chosen to be the secondary driver per se, I really don't think that will sit well with him. And to be honest, I don't think that will sit well with fans either.
Yeah, and I think that's how Vasseur has kind of positioned it. And I do like the way he seems to be setting the stall out a little bit clearer and a bit earlier in the season than, say, Binotto did last year, where he's kind of said there isn't a number one driver, but if we get to a point where one of them is obviously ahead, then the team are aware that that's what's going to happen. So I'd like to think he's already sat them both down and said, you're equal until you're not. It's almost like trying to set the competition between the two of them, because if those two do compete with each other and you do end up with my personal dream, the two red cars at the front fighting for 1 and 2 in every single race, then that can only be good for Ferrari. But I don't know. I'm just still preparing myself for a year of more Ferrari clown show, but we'll... Well,
I mean, it was Silverstone last year where they had Charles in front and Carlos behind, and they wanted Carlos to go drop back behind the safety car as far as possible to give Charles some space, and then Carlos won. So, I mean, like, I don't know. Rob, I appreciate you love Ferrari. I'm more of a Carlos Sainz fan of both drivers, and I'll do my own thing.
So you name-checked 2 rookies. Now, the one that obviously is going to get the big attention over here, but I feel that he won't have the car to do it, is Logan Sargent. Mm-hmm. What's your thoughts on what he's going to be able to get out of that Williams in his rookie year?
Well, for starters, I'm thrilled to see an American driver in the sport again. I think it's absolutely vital for American fans to be able to watch the sport, root for someone, have someone representing their country, in order for it to be a world championship. I think it's really great that Logan Sargent, and, he's genuinely here on merit. He's a fantastic driver. Now, I can't say I'm expecting Williams to be constructors champions. However, I would really like to see just a slightly more even playing field this year. I do think towards the end of last season, we were seeing Williams score a couple of points left and right a little bit. And Latifi, bless him, was... I hold the utmost respect for him, really, but unfortunately, just towards the end of his Williams career, was not performing to the standard he was expected to. And I think if Sargent can come in and pull, a Nick De Vries, what he did in that Williams, just, every other race even, and just score some points, that would even be a really great step up. And that would be really great to see. I think the best way to measure success in Formula One isn't by comparing Max Verstappen and Nicholas Latifi. It's by comparing teammates, because that's the best, most even comparison. So if we just look at Alex Albon and we say, yeah, actually, you know what, Sargent's measuring up pretty well, then I really think he can call that a successful season. Yeah,
no, I'd agree. And I think really, as long as he can avoid being dead last in every single race, not do a Latifi, I don't think the American audience is going to expect him to come in and start winning races or any of that kind of stuff. I'm also hopeful of something you just touched on there, that this year being the second year of the regulations, maybe the cost cap helps as well and things start closing up. Not only would I like to see the ability of the Williams to finish a little bit higher up and a bit more regularity, I also want to see more constructors on the podium and maybe even, the odd McLaren or Aston Martin or whoever it might be win. I just, that my dream season is that nothing against Max, fantastic driver. I just don't want to see going into summer break, the title already decided and nothing left up for grabs. So do you think, am I again being my over optimistic self, or do you sense that we're going to get a little bit more of a kind of a mixed up podium this year?
Yeah. Season was polarized slightly by the regulation changes, because a lot of teams found that they either nailed it or failed it, and it was quite catastrophic for teams like Mercedes. And I would absolutely give my left arm for a 3-way title battle between Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari. I'd love to see Lando Norris get a couple more wins. I really think he's got it in him. He's a blimming fantastic driver. Oscar Piastri, I want him to have a blistering rookie season. Oh gosh, it's so hard because I feel like everyone's my favorite and I want to see everyone win. But no, I think as a fan, and I genuinely say this, I'm genuinely very impartial as long as there's some good racing, and that's all I want, some good racing, some good tight battles. And I think it could happen this season. I don't want to be overly optimistic. However, yes, like you said, there's been a little while for the regulations to kind of the dust to settle. Hopefully the teams will come back with their new cars. Of course, they've not got a lot of testing time this year. The only time the teams can test the full ready to go car is in the free practice sessions or in the preseason testing, which this year is really, really short. So I actually do think the first few races of the season are going to be a bit of a free-for-all. But aside from that, I'd really like to see the dust settle on a good, tight championship battle between a few teams.
Do you have any kind of out there predictions? Now, I agree with you. I'd love to see everything you just described. And I, too, like you, seem to be a fan of almost every driver, it feels like at times. However, out of curiosity, is there a bold Antonia prediction for 2023? A driver, a team doing better than expected or worse than expected? That if you had as I would say here in the States, a $20 bill and you ended up in Vegas, what would you put on the long shot?
Gosh, I'm going to go back to Oscar Piastri here. Formula Renault rookie season champion, Formula 3 rookie season champion, Formula 2 rookie season champion. I'm not saying there's a pattern there, but it would be cool, wouldn't it? No, I think I would love to see a team like McLaren just absolutely pull it out of the bag and give us just an absolute screamer of the season. Everyone is completely blown out of their seats. They can't believe it. Piastri's world champion. He has a massive, rift with Lando Norris because they're both fighting behind the wheel because no one was expecting them to be both pushing for the same championship. And, if this comes true now, then gosh, I really should go to Vegas and do some betting. But, I don't think, and I hate to rule anything out at the start of the season. I said this last year and I'll say it again. Until we see these cars on the track, until the last lap of the last race of the season, nothing is set in stone. And I think there's anything can happen. And you know what? Piastri 23 world champion. There we go. That's my bold prediction.
There it is.
We're putting that on a t-shirt and getting it ready.
Oh, gosh.
No, and I think, you know what? Like you said, there were some cars last year that completely just missed the ball with the new regs. Mercedes did look strong towards the end of last season. I've gone out there. I don't even think it's going out on a limb, to be honest, to say that Hamilton wins a race next year and becomes the first driver to go over the 300 race club and win a race. He's definitely that's happening. I almost guarantee it. I would just. Can I get him on board with the Piastri McLaren thing? They've threatened it so much recently that it's looks like, McLaren are going to do it, McLaren are going to do it, and then it just doesn't quite come off. But if they can learn from whatever was holding them back last year, and we don't see Red Bull kind of disappear, I don't see that they can go much further than they were, so it feels like everyone else should be able to close the gap, but okay, Piastri world champion, there it is.
Watch me never do a podcast again for just how wrong I am. I'll go into hiding.
No, don't worry about it. On the dirty side, Rob and I are wrong like 7 times an episode, so no sweat at all.
Hey, yeah, but I'm just going to go back there and say that you ridiculed me last year for when my bold prediction at the beginning of the season was Haas were going to score more than 30 points in the season after they got 0 the year before. So it's not quite as big a prediction as Piastri to win it, but
you got that one really, right. You definitely did.
I did get one right. Yeah.
It's good that you remember the one you got right. It's easy to remember it. So, Antonia, I have a question for you. Now, for the regular listeners to the dirty side, the 100 seconds of DRS, we have listeners participate and guests participate. It is quite often the highlight of someone's week. And I'm just curious, are you as excited as we are to have this opportunity to ask you some questions about F1 and random things in the 100 seconds of DRS?
Gosh, yeah, I feel privileged.
Well, Let's ask you after if you still feel privileged. So,
gosh.
We flipped a coin, and it's Rob's opportunity to ask you some questions. So I will ask you both. Antonia, are you ready for the 100 seconds of DRS?
Yes, I'm ready.
Rob, are you ready for the 100 seconds of DRS?
Yes, I am.
Gosh, I'm terrified.
So I'm going to count us in, and I'll do the timing, which I've learned to do correctly now. 3, 2, 1, begin.
Best F1 driver on the grid currently?
Lewis Hamilton.
First poster you had on your bedroom wall?
I don't have posters.
Oh, that's a new answer. Favourite F1 track?
Silverstone.
What's your favourite cheese?
I don't like cheese.
Ooh. Ferrari or Ford?
Ferrari.
Is it pronounced GIF or GIF?
GIF.
Mario or Luigi?
Mario.
If you were in the pit crew, which tyre would you change?
Front left.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
If you could add a James Bond type gadget to an F1 car, what would it be?
Oh, like saws on the wheels if they get too close.
Yes.
Favourite musician or musical group?
Adele.
Coffee or tea?
Neither.
Ooh. First memory of Formula One?
My dad forcing me to watch it.
Sleep in or get up early?
Get up early.
Favorite Formula One driver of all time?
Jenson Button.
Do you have any lucky superstitions?
If I hit one side of my body, I have to hit the other side just as hard so that it's even.
DRS, good or bad?
Good.
Tyres, interesting or not?
Oh, so interesting.
Yes.
Batman or Superman?
Superman.
If you could get two drivers from different eras to go head to head, which would you pick?
Senna versus Lewis.
Would you rather be chased by one horse-sized duck or 10 duck-sized horses?
10 duck-sized horses.
What would you give to the winners instead of champagne?
A vodka shot, and they have to keep a straight face.
What's your favourite food?
Steak.
Time. We have reached time.
Ooh.
There we are.
Was that okay?
That was
And we got
fantastic.
some new, so we've our first person that doesn't drink tea or coffee and doesn't like cheese.
By the way, I don't
Gosh,
And
that
drink
sounds
didn't
tea or
have
boring.
coffee.
posters.
I don't drink tea or coffee either. And when we did DRS for each other, you didn't ask me that question. So I'd like to vote with Antonia. She's right on that. She's definitely right on that.
Well, before we wrap up, we just want to say, have you actually been along to any F1 races?
Yes, I have. I went to Silverstone this year.
Oh,
Nice.
yeah. Brian and I, we're going to Canada in June. It's our first race ever, so we're like so
Oh, wow.
ridiculously excited about that. So
Canada's a good one. Good choice.
I'm actually kind of hoping that we're going to see a groundhog end up lodged in someone's side pod, but
No, I tell you what, if it's your first Grand Prix, if you hope it's like Canada 2011, it will last 4 hours and you really get your value for money. Just bring a raincoat.
yeah, I'm not sure I want to sit in the rain for 4 hours, but yeah, so it was fantastic to have you on. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I think you're on Twitter, but you're really kind of TikTok, yeah? So if there's anything you want to give a shout out in terms of promoting yourself, you want to give your various handles or what have you, then now is your moment.
Oh gosh, okay. So yeah, my TikTok, F1 Antonia. Come join the little corner of the internet. It's really nice. It's like a little family of F1. And yes, my Twitter is Antonia J Rankin.
And you are found from time to time on the Missed Apex podcast as well. Didn't you host it this weekend as well?
Yes, I did. I hosted the Sunday episode. Yes.
Yeah, we totally unrelated. We actually had Spanners on the other week. It now feels like we're chasing down. We'd have to get Matt Trumpets on, I think, at some point because he's just down the road from me in New York. So then we'll kind of collect the set. But no, again, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your views. It's been absolutely brilliant.
No, of course. Thank you so much for having me. This has been really fun.
Thanks, Antonia. So, amazing conversation with Antonia. Thank you so very much for joining us. I really enjoyed getting her perspective, and I love following her. The Sandcar video, if you haven't seen it on TikTok, you gotta watch it. It is just epic. Thanks for doing DRS. As always, I'd stress for all our listeners, if you're interested in doing the 100 seconds of DRS, let us know on Twitter at F1DirtySide or at our email, which you can find on our website, www.dirtysideofthetrack.com. Rob kind of noted we've been really fortunate with guests, but that means they've dominated DRS. So, Rob, why don't you put out the plea one more time?
Yeah, I mean, it was when we first launched it was definitely a listener-based thing, and it was great to meet some of you guys and talk to you about F1 and do the little kind of chit-chat that we do before we actually do the 100 seconds, and then, nice to have people have their own little section and a shout-out on the show. And then as we got more guests on and we thought it was cool to get the guests to do it, the guests have been doing it, so come on, we need to fight back against these guests. And you actually now get to put yourself against or in the same bracket as people like Matt Bishop that have done the 100 seconds, and Antonia and Spanners and all these other guests we've had on. So please don't be shy. Please volunteer. Come on and add your name to the list of DRS guests. But one last thing on Antonia, Brian. I really got a feeling that it was very, very probable, maybe even 100% certain, that in this current era of F1 where we sit right now, she knows more than both of us put together.
100%. 1,000,000%. As we have often said, we are just two bozos sitting here talking about our fandom for F1, and that's why we love when guests come on and talk about their fandom for F1. So, yeah.
Or expertise, not just fandom. Like when she just pulled Canada 2011 out of the hat, I just nodded along and went, yep. And then I had to go and Google it afterwards. Like, oh, yeah, the 4-hour race.
Well, I mean, let's be abundantly clear. From Matt Bishop to Spanners, to a week where we talked about a Vale's Tales and Nigel Mansell. Hold that down for a second. And then Antonia, 3 or 4 weeks. We have clearly been outmatched in terms of brain power and charisma, but that's okay.
I've got to be honest, we've had like quite the run of guests. We've had, like you say, 4 weeks, 3 guests, all have been fantastic. I'm not sure it can get any better than this right now, Brian.
Well, there's one thing, and I mean, it's a long shot, but if we were able to somehow get a current driver, would that satisfy topping those? And again, they're all relative. I appreciate all of them, but in terms of our, podcast maturation, would that be the next step?
Yeah, but I mean, what are the chances of that happening?
This is Valtteri Bottas, and you're listening to the dirty side of the track.